everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, then hi, I'm Antonia. I'm an accountant and a small business owner, and I own Abacus Jack with my business partner Andy. Our mission is to help small business owners make better financial decisions by educating them and giving them financial confidence, because if they make better decisions, then that can move the business forwards, and then that's good for everybody. If you're a small business owner or even running a side hustle and you're about to go on maternity leave, then this one's for you. Today, I'm breaking down how to keep your business profitable while taking time off. Real strategies, real planning, and yes, it's totally possible. So here's the reality. Taking a break to have a baby is beautiful, and it's such a unique one-off experience sometimes that you just want to enjoy the time and you don't want to feel any pressure to get back to work when your baby's arrived, you've got sleepless nights, you're trying to figure out which way is up. But for entrepreneurs, it can also feel scary. And you might be thinking, how do I pay myself when I'm not working? Will the business survive without me? And what's going to happen to my sales? Well, that's exactly what happened to one of my clients recently. And they did have a drop in sales, but they still turned a profit last month. And this is how. First, you need to get crystal clear on your finances. The client and I looked at their March performance and immediately started reviewing what expenses could be reduced or managed better. Some of the questions that they asked were, are we spending smartly on advertising? Are we carrying too much stock? And can we shift our income structure? So when looking at the advertising, what we looked at was how much did they spend this month and how much did that compare to last month? And also how much did that compare to the year before? Then we looked at the sales performance for that advertising investment, and we said, based on this advertising spend this month and the sales it generated this month, was that better or worse than last month? And it was a lot better. So the advertising was paying for itself and it was generating the sales performance that we needed. But that also had to be balanced with stock, because we didn't want to put so much money in advertising that the stuff flew off the shelves, but then the next month we couldn't sell anything because we didn't have any stock. We had to look at what stock was left and what had sold out based on the investment in the ads that had been shown. Also, as a seasonal business, we had to look at the stock that had sold out. Was that what had been shown in the ads? And also, was it the right time of year for that stock to sell out? Then we also had to plan what invoices and purchases needed to be made now, if they hadn't already been made, to make sure that the stock was going to be there for the summer and the autumn, because the baby is going to be due soon. So we need to make sure that the stock continuity is there for when my client is on maternity leave. And then we looked at the income structure and how, for a limited company, my client was going to take income for the period of maternity and the allowances that you can get. So then you need to think about paying yourself smarter. So my client is a limited company and they haven't paid themselves a lot since they've started. And that's because they've been investing back into the business to grow it. So my clients still have other jobs, and this is turning into quite the side hustle at the minute. But because they're investing back into the business, that's given them more flexibility to invest in the stock, to then sell more units, to then drive more profits. Now, because they've done that and they've put money in at the start to help the business get started and help the cash flow when it's needed it, that means that my client had built up a director's loan balance. So my client is using something that's called a director's loan account. And this is basically money that my client has put into the business personally over the years, where the cash flow was potentially poor because my client still has another job, so she's been able to do that. And when somebody does that for a limited company and they put personal money into a business, then that business owes the money back to the client at a later stage when it can afford to repay it. The director's loan account then sits on the balance sheet, so it's always there when you need it. So when you take money back out of the director's loan account, because you've loaned it to the business, then it's just a repayment of the loan back to you. So there's no income tax implications. You don't have to take it through payroll as an employee. So because my client already has another job, the most tax efficient way for her to extract cash from the business is to gradually eke out a little bit of that director's loan account every month. Because if we were going to put a salary on for my client, then that might be in breach of her employment contract for a full-time job, and then that might mean that puts her at risk of her maternity pay that she gets from her employer. So what we do is then, to support her personal cash flow, is just plan out what's going to happen with the maternity pay. So normally what will happen if you have a full-time job with maternity is you might get a set period of weeks or months where you stay on full pay for 3 or 6 months, depending on your employer and the benefits that you get. If you're in a small business, you might not get that. You might just go straight onto SMP. After that period where you get your paid maternity leave, then you drop onto SMP, which is often a lower value than what your normal pay is. So then what our objective was to try and buffer the loss of earnings with the director's loan account. So say you have 4 months of full pay on maternity leave, but you want to be off work for a period of 9 months. During those 4 months of full pay, we keep everything the same as we do right now, because there's no difference in terms of the net amount that my client needs to take home each month. After that, when the full pay ends and the SMP starts, then the amount that they're getting into their bank account from their employer drops significantly. So we then use the director's loan account as a buffer between the two. So we increase the drawdown of the director's loan account balance, and that means that they take more money out of the business each month as a repayment from that director's loan account, and that tops up the SMP that they get to roughly the same amount that they would have got on their full maternity pay. When that director's loan balance runs out, depending on if my client goes back to work after the SMP finishes as well, or if they come and work full-time in the business, then we either start a salary scheme in the business and they get paid from the business, and that helps with the corporation tax, because the payslip costs and the net pay and the gross pay, that's all allowable expenses. Or if my client was going to go back to her stay in full-time employment and go back to where she worked before she had the baby, then we switch to a dividend approach, and they can extract profits from the business after they've suffered corporation tax on it, but instead take a dividend payment instead, which they can then declare through self-assessment. Another thing that you want to think about when you're going on maternity leave, and if you have a profitable business, is, are you taking pension contributions from your small business? Here's a little known tax hack, which is that pension contributions are tax deductible on your business. So if you've had a good month and your business is growing and you're going to have decent profits throughout the year, then one way that you can reduce that corporation tax is by starting to take some pension contributions out of the business. So my client is exploring how to split income between payroll and pension contributions to maximize both take-home pay and future savings. If you have a child, you don't want to be a burden to them when they're older, because you want to make sure that you have enough money in your pension when you decide to stop working, so you can look after your children's children potentially. Don't be afraid to speak to your accountant about combining your salary and your pension to get a full benefits package, and your accountant can help you look at that alongside your cash flow to make sure you get the right fit for the business and for yourself. Next, running the business doesn't have to stop just because you're away. You need to think about a plan and come up with some actions that can help run the business without you having to be involved. You can automate some things like stock alerts and invoicing. You can also preload things like, if you do a lot of advertising on Instagram, for example, and you have to create a certain amount of reels per week, then you could double that up for a period of 1 or 2 months, so that you've got 1 or 2 months, or even 3 months. If you decrease the amount that you issue per week, then that could be 3 months of not having to create any reels. And then in that third month, you could start thinking about going back into your content strategy. Alternatively, if you have some team members or family members and you can delegate to them and they're willing to help, then go for it. You know, if you make stuff and you have packaging that needs to be fulfilled, or you need stuff dropping off at the post office, or you need some help doing some bookkeeping, then don't be afraid to ask for help, because in your network there'll be someone who's got a little bit of spare time that they can help, and you could even pay them as a subcontractor if you need to, and you plan it in. Also, simplify product lines if you can. Focus on your best selling products and look at your margins and see which products are giving you the best returns, and then develop your new ideas slowly and give yourself some time to get back into the business once you've delivered your baby. Like, think sustainability, not scale during this season. So whether you're planning for maternity leave or a sabbatical or shared parental leave or just a slower season, there are ways to keep your business going and profitable. If you found that helpful, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more small business and finance tips. Drop me a comment if you've ever had to plan for time off in the business, and I'd love to hear how you did it. If watching this has made you think, I need an accountant like you, and you want to speak to me directly, or if you want to become a client, then I've added some links in the video and it would be great to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.